In this video, I'm going to be discussing how you can increase your credit score in just a few simple steps, how your credit score is calculated, and what steps that you can take today to make sure that your credit score is higher, say 1 month, 2 month, and even 1 year from today. Now, before I dive into today's video, if you wouldn't mind helping me out real quickly by just giving this video a like, that just signals to YouTube that this video could potentially be helpful to other people like you as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump right into this for today. Now, I'm going to start out by saying that this video is not financial advice. However, these methods are directly from the FICO scoring models, so they are proven to work. So just looking at this right now up on the screen, so breaking down of how important each thing is, we can see that the most important thing, making up 35% of your FICO score, is your payment history. Then 30% is your amounts owed, 15% is your credit history, then we have 10% your credit mix, and 10% new credit. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to start at the least important one, and then we're going to work our way up to what's most important with payment history. We're going to be describing what all these things mean, and also ways that we can improve upon them to make sure that we're getting the highest score possible. Okay, so the first one here is the credit mix. So these are just the different types of accounts under your name. And basically what it does is it just demonstrates your ability to manage different types of credit. Now there are different types of accounts here, two different types. There's something called a revolving account, and then there's also something called an installment account. So revolving accounts are typically something like credit cards. They don't have a specific end date, something that you can, something that will ever be finished paying off, and they do not have a set balance. It just depends on what you put on the credit card each and every month. And then we have the installment accounts. So these are more so something like loans. So if you have like a car payment or a mortgage, these have set end dates. So you might have a car payment for 5 years where you're making a set payment every single month. This is what we call an installment account. So basically just having a variety of mix here, a credit mix, can help your credit score. However, this does only make up 10%, so it's not a huge deal if you don't have a good mix. It's not going to necessarily hurt your score, and it's also not really going to help your score all that much either, but it does make up 10%, so it is there to keep in mind. Now, another one here on the list is new credit. This also makes up 10% of your score, and this is basically the number of credit inquiries on your account. And each hard pull, each time that you apply for a credit card, this will typically lower your score just a little bit. Sometimes it may not, but typically it is recommended against to apply for a lot of new cards just because of these hard pulls that could potentially lower your credit score. So basically here the key is just to not apply for 10 or 15 or 20 credit cards over a short period of time like 1 month, as that could potentially drastically reduce your credit score. Now again, this only does make up 10% of your credit score, so it's not hugely important. It's not going to completely kill your credit score, and it's not going to drag your credit score to great heights. However, once again, it is something to keep in mind just because it does make up 10% of the pie. Okay, so next up we have the length of credit history. So what this makes up is the age of your oldest credit account, your age of your newest account, and then the average age of all of your accounts. So basically here, there's not necessarily a real shortcut to improve the length of your credit history. Time is on your side. So if you do not get your first credit card until the age of 18, it may take a while to build upon this, but that's fine. Now, one thing that you can do if your parents are responsible and they're paying their credit card off on time every single month, and they usually keep their balance lower, you could always have them add you as what's known as an authorized user, and you can kind of piggyback off of their score. And if they've had that credit card for 10 years, that's also going to report to the credit bureaus that you had that credit card as well for 10 years. So that could help you in that aspect. This isn't hugely important. It's a little bit more important than the other two that I mentioned, the credit mix as well as the new credit. This is going to be at 15% for the credit history. And while there's no such thing as the perfect age of credit, a FICO study did reveal that for people with 800 plus FICO scores, their average age of credit accounts was 128 months, which is a little bit over 10 and a half years. Yet that doesn't mean that will take you 10 and a half years to earn good credit. You don't necessarily have to have a line of credit or a credit card for 10 and a half years to have a good credit score. We can see here this only makes up 15%. So basically, again, you can have your parents add you as an authorized user on their card, or you can just get a credit card today or something like that. Be responsible with it, have it for a longer period of time, and this will improve over a period of time. Okay, so next on the list, and this is actually the second most important one at 30% according to the FICO scoring model. This is the amounts owed, or also known as your credit utilization ratio. Now at max, you'll want to have this at 30%. However, if you want to have the best, I would say the maximum that you should have, and also recommended by other financial experts, would be 10%. Now, what I mean by this, what is the credit utilization ratio? So basically what you have here is the amount that you owe, and then also what your credit line is. So let's say, for example, you take out your first credit card, let's say it's with Capital One, and they issue you a credit limit of $1,000. So that's the maximum amount that you can put on your credit card every single statement period is $1,000. So if you put $300 on that credit card within that statement period, and you have a $300 balance that you will owe, we'll be taking that $300 amount that you owe, we'll be dividing that by the amount of your credit line, which is going to be $1,000. So $300 divided by $1,000 will be 30%. So we're right at that 30% number. Now, like I mentioned, 30% is fine and all. However, we do want to get this below 10% if possible. So for that to happen, we would want to have this at max $100, because $100 for the amount that you owe divided by $1,000 would be 10%. So that puts you at a good mark. Now, a helpful hint here, what you can do to make sure that your credit utilization ratio is lower, first off, you can just make multiple payments throughout the month. So what you can actually do is whenever you make a transaction, you can go ahead and pay that off in full. So let's say that you go to the grocery store and you spend $100 on groceries. The very next day, you can go ahead and make a payment for, let's say, the full amount, either $100 or a partial amount, let's say like $90. So whenever you get your balance at the end of the month, you've already made payments on it. That way you can have your credit utilization ratio lower. Now, some people will say, isn't a 0% credit utilization ratio actually the best? Wouldn't that even be better than 10%, increase my score even more? Well, no, that's the funny thing here is, if you have a 0% credit utilization ratio, in that prior example, let's say that you have a $0 balance and you have a $1,000 credit limit, well, it looks like you're not using any of your credit, so it's, I mean, the people who are determining your score, the model that's being used there is actually not going to be increasing your score as much as it could, just because it's seeing that you're not using credit at all. Even though you've been making transactions, it's showing that you have a 0% credit utilization ratio. So with that said, it is just a tad bit better just to have a little bit of a balance there. Now, another thing that you can do to keep your credit utilization ratio a little bit lower is you can call your credit card company and ask if they can give you a credit limit increase. So right now with that prior example, if we currently have a $1,000 credit limit and we can get that increase double up to $2,000, that can help lower your credit utilization ratio as long as you're not spending more money. So let's say that you have a $300 balance, usually that you carry in your card with a $1,000 credit limit, that's going to be 30%. However, with a $2,000 credit limit, your credit utilization ratio is now trimmed in half down to 15%. So that's going to help out greatly. Another thing that you can do is you can always apply for more credit cards, which is going to increase your credit. So let's say you already have that Capital One credit card with the $1,000 limit. Then you go out and let's say that you get a Chase credit card, which also has a $1,000 limit. As long as you don't increase your spending across the two cards, that should also lower your credit utilization ratio as well. And finally, the most important thing according to the FICO scoring model is your payment history. So what you need to do here is pretty self-explanatory. You just need to make sure that you're making all of your payments on time. No matter what, it doesn't matter what you have to do. You can set up alerts on your phone. You can have some sort of a schedule on your wall where you're writing when all of your credit cards are due or whenever all of your loans are due, just to make sure that you're paying off on time. Or in today's world, we can also set up something known as auto pay, where you set that up in the system where you have payments automatically drafted out of your checking account on that day where it is due. And I'm a huge advocate of auto pay because sometimes life just happens and we completely forget about making payments. We have other things that are much more important going on. And if we have auto pay set up, we can completely forget about making a payment, and it's completely fine because it gets automatically drafted out of your bank account. Now, one thing that you need to make sure to keep in mind if you do have auto pay set up is to make sure that you have enough funds in your checking account that is linked to the credit card or whatever loan that you're paying off, because if you don't have the funds there, then you can be faced with an overdraft. Also, you need to make sure to keep in mind that if you do have auto pay set up, if you go in and make additional payments, that auto pay is still going to come out. So that could certainly leave you in a tough spot. So what I mean by that is if you have a $300 balance and you have auto pay set up, that auto pay is going to take out the $300. But if you go in earlier before the auto pay and you go ahead and make that payment in full, you go ahead and make the $300 payment, you're going to have $300 drafted out of your bank account from the payment that you make yourself. But then the auto pay is still going to take out an additional $300. So if you need the extra $300 there, you're going to have $600 taken out of your bank account over the course of time. So just make sure to keep that in mind. If you do have auto pay set up, if you go in and make a manual payment, the auto pay is still going to take an additional amount for whatever you had that set up in the system for. So basically the key here is just to make sure that you're making all of your payments on time every single month. This is so important. It makes up 35% of your score. And if you miss a payment, in many cases, people have seen huge drops in their credit score. However, if this does happen to you where you slip up and you miss one payment, just make sure to get back up on the horse and continue making payments on time in future months. Do not make that one slip up really mess you up over a long period of time, and definitely make sure that you're not missing payments over 90 days because that can really drop your score even more dramatically. So just to sum things up, to wrap up this video, again, the two most important things that you can do are your payment history and also the amounts owed, or what's known as the credit utilization ratio. So if you don't have any credit right now, what I would recommend doing, this is not financial advice, but what I would do if I was going to start out again is I would go out and get what's known as a secured credit card, just because it's going to be harder to get a lot of other lines of credit right now, because banks and creditors are not going to trust you if you don't have any type of credit history. So you can go out and get a secured credit card. It can be like a Capital One secured credit card, or it can be the Discover secured credit card. You can go online and apply for those. Most likely you will get it. What a secured credit card is you're basically putting down your own money for your credit limit. So you might put down $300 of your own money. Then after 6 to 12 months of making payments on time, in full and everything like that, they can graduate you to another card. And then over time, you can apply for other credit cards, ones that have better rewards, ones that have these spend bonuses and cash back, things that I really love like that. And then just to make sure that you keep that credit utilization ratio low, make sure to keep your balance low, make sure you're making payments on time, and you're going to do just fine. You're going to see huge increases to your credit score over time. It does take just a little bit of time, but as long as you're patient, as long as you're responsible with these credit cards, making payments on time, you're going to do just fine. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. If you enjoyed the content in today's video and you would like to see more like it, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to my channel if you have not already, and I will see you in the next video.